Welcome to Unleashed at Work and Home. I'm Colleen Pilar, and this is where pet professionals come for honest conversations about what it really takes to show up for yourself while serving the animals you love. If you've ever felt caught between compassion and exhaustion, you're in the right place. Here we explore what it means to reconnect with your inner wisdom and rediscover the joy that brought you to this work. Make sure to join my email community at colleenpilar.com for gentle, practical insights designed specifically for pet professionals. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to Unleashed at Work and Home. My guest today is Tara Moser, and she is a licensed social worker who is also a registered play therapist, and I forgot the other certification, and it's no longer on my screen in front of me. So tell me what the other one is. Animal-assisted interventions.
Yep. A certified animal-assisted intervention specialist.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had the wrong screen up in front of me. Welcome, Tara. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Nice to have you here today.
Excited.
So, lately I have interviewed a bunch of people who don't quite fit the traditional definition of pet professional, and it seems to be a theme, and you are continuing my theme. You probably don't think of yourself, introduce yourself to people as, hi, I'm a pet professional. So can you tell us a little bit more of what you do think of yourself as?
Well, that's a big question. So I guess it depends which hat I'm wearing is what I always say. So obviously
Okay.
you rattled off my alphabet soup there of all my credentials for my clinical work and my play therapy work, and then some of the animal piece that overlaps with that. But I think I just like to be a helper. So whether it's with humans or animals, I am involved in a couple different dog type rescue animal situations. We also actually own a nonprofit that includes animals. So like I said, I wear lots of hats. I don't know how to explain that even better. Hopefully that was
Tell me about the nonprofit.
So besides my clinical practice, we have a camp called Positive, PAW, Positive Kids Camp. And it's a collaborative between the mental health practice and local rescue groups. And so it's a day camp. We host a couple times a year. We have a middle school and an elementary school curriculum. And the kids get their own rescue dog for the week that they're training, helping the rescue make more adoptable while they're working on social, emotional, behavioral, whatever things they're working on. Sometimes they foster, sometimes they just see the dog at camp. And then at the end, they get to host an adoption event with the rescue. And so they get to go through that whole process of kind of being mini dog trainers while working on themselves and hosting that adoption event and seeing that final product where the animal gets adopted into its own family.
Wow, that's a big thing. So tell me a little bit more about what the kids do with and for the adoption event.
So they're prepping. So during the week, they're learning some basic, before the dogs come, I guess, let me rewind. The very first day, the dogs are not on campus until about halfway through, because we do a whole dog safety education. How do we properly interact with animals, even though they've been around them before, especially dogs, and prepping them for that engagement. Because sometimes we have puppies, sometimes we have older dogs, sometimes we have tiny, sometimes we have big. What that looks like, especially when we do the playgroup times and the animals are together. So they're learning, we do our version of clicker training. By no means is it traditional, precise clicker training. It's kid clicker training. But helping them even associate the name of the animal. Most of these dogs don't know their names when they're coming in because they're coming straight from shelter and rescue. And learning how to teach them how to sit, building that relationship with them. Most of them will get sit and down. They'll loose leash walk, which is nice. They'll recognize their name. And they make treat pouches that they carry their own poop bags. We make them responsible for all that during the week, and their clickers and their treats and all that fun stuff. And then we work on self-esteem and talk about maybe the animal's story and their story. We intentionally match them, which is kind of fun. So there's an interview process. And so while they're going through the week, they're figuring out why they were matched with this dog. So at the adoption event, they can even share that. The dog and I were both working on this, or we were opposites trying to come together. Maybe the child is super hyper and it's a super shy dog, and they were trying to balance each other out, and they can share that. They learn how to read dog body language. So at the adoption event, when their animal is stressed, letting us know, even though we're watching, but like, hey, I need to go for a walk, or my dog's telling me they need to go outside, and really getting kind of that pride.
Yeah. It's such an interesting framework. And so who comes to the adoption event? Is that pre-screened people who are already planning to adopt, or is it just a general public, we're having this event on this day, anyone
The
come?
answer is yes, both. So the rescue that we primarily work with does a lot of pre-screenings because people have gotten to know camp dogs, and typically in the summer, they get calls saying, "Hey, are there camp dogs this year? Would like to adopt a camp dog. When is that coming?" So they do that pre-screening, but it's at a public pet store, so it is advertised out to the public. Anyone can come. We encourage their families to come so they can show off what they learned. Show your parents how you taught the dog to sit, show this relationship that you have with this animal.
And how many kids do you have in a group?
Typically, we don't go higher than 8 at a time. Our space required that. We are in a bigger space this year, so we're playing around if we wanna go maybe up to 10 to 12, but it's been 8.
Wow. And how many of these do you run?
We usually do 2 to 4 a summer. It just depends. Sometimes we'll do winter and spring break. We've had to skip a couple years. We're in Florida. We had hurricanes that took out one time, and then we had some medical situations for the lead counselors a couple times. But we've been doing this, I think this is our 12th year.
Awesome. I think kids tend to be pretty good trainers. Not, you know, not super precise, but pretty darn good. And particularly, I found late elementary school age kids were often far better than their parents once we really explained what it is we're looking for, what we're clicking for. And I thought that was really interesting, and it gave them an opportunity to be ahead of their parents, and so rarely does that happen for kids. Kids are always learning from their parents. Their parents are better at this and that and the other thing than they are, and in dog training, often families would come together, and mom or dad would be just really kind of a little hopeless, and the kid would get it, and it was really cool to watch them bloom, to be the supportive teacher, the one who's like, "Here's how we do it. This is gonna work." What have you noticed in the kids that isn't so much about training, but about how they see themselves?
Pride and mastery comes out. I was kind of chuckling as you were telling that example because at the adoption events, the kids will often laugh and call us over because their parents will attempt to ask the dog to sit, and their kids are trying to teach. No, 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 they don't know that. They know this hand signal and this word, and they're teaching kind of what we've taught them. And the parents are like, but that's not what we do. And the kid's like, yes, this is what you're supposed to do. So I'm laughing as you say that. The pride is the biggest piece. Just watching their eyes light up when they finally get it, especially if it's been a dog that I'm sure you and everyone listening knows that dog that's just like, I don't want to sit on that. And they finally do it and they meet that and they're, oh my goodness, guess what I did? And just overcoming that obstacle and having the patience, especially your kids with impulse control or just that hyperactivity that want to hurry up and have immediate success, or your perfectionists. And
Yeah,
so really working on that. We laughed with the clicker. We teach them, like, don't get the butt pop is what we call it, so you don't want them coming back up and really having to slow down. And so just giving all those tools, and then we kind of parallel it. How can you do this in your own life? With your siblings, with your parents, with your peers? So
yeah,
crossing that over, talking about boundaries and all those things that even overlap, that they're like, "Oh, that does make sense. I don't have to be friends with everybody, and I can have more space just like this dog wanted more space from that dog," and the
mhm.
parallels.
Yeah, it's amazing all the learning that can come from that. When I moved up to Michigan, I I went to many sessions. There's a nonprofit up here called Teacher's Pet that works with at-risk youth, in a variety of circumstances and shelter dogs. And I went to a program where it was, teenage boys who were incarcerated, and it was really fascinating to me to see how the training of the dog was the least important part of the curriculum, and it was the part that the kids felt, was like the draw, like this is what but it was those parallels, those life lessons, the noticing, "Oh, look, this dog is uncomfortable. How could we make this dog more comfortable? When are you uncomfortable?" All of those kinds of pieces. And when it can be done well and safely, there's such value in this kind of learning to really help, I don't know, increase empathy and create understanding, but also give kids tools for being able to communicate with dogs better in the future because I don't think we do a great job as a culture of teaching dog body language or behavior, so we just pick it up from TV like, "Oh, yeah, all dogs like that." No. S How does a kid become eligible for your program?
So our curriculum is 2nd through 5th grade for the elementary and then 6th through 8th here. And there's an application process, and then we do an interview and screening just to make sure there's safety because it's not straight therapy. So we want to make sure there's not an aggression history or a harming of animals, a
Right.
severe fear. That's something that comes up. We also do some education, especially psychoeducation with the parents during that. One of our biggest challenges is that they want to tell us what kind of breed their dog is or their kid's going to have. And we do not breed discriminate. We temperament test. We go through 3 rounds, but it doesn't matter the breed to us.
Mhm.
It matters the personality of the dog. And so it actually parallels kind of beautifully with judgment and
Mhm.
discrimination. And we tie that in. Like, what are you teaching your kid? Uh,
Yeah.
we want the kids to recognize kind of openness and seeing how all animals are similar and different in personalities and all those things. So during that interview process, once they pass that, we kind of earmark spots and take their deposit and then make sure they can attend the dates that we have. And once we get closer, we do a parent kind of seminar where it's the parents only, and we go over all the rules and regulations of what the week is going to look like, making sure they're still in agreement, making sure their child still wants to do it. We've had a couple kids and they're like, my mom wants me to do this and I really don't want to. And we're like, this is not the right kid for this. They're not going to enjoy
Mhm.
this. And we get that here in the clinical office too. Like the parents will say, oh, they have to have animal assisted therapy. And when you get the kid, they just want to play. They don't really care about the dog being in the session. And so advocating for that. So after that parent session, which is all the parents, then we kind of rescreen everybody, just confirm. And then we've at that point usually done 2 rounds of our temperament testing. So we have an idea of which dogs, unless they're adopted, that's always the caveat we say, because we're not going to withhold an adoption. We want to make sure the rescues, that's their priority, right? The only time it's held is basically that week and weekend before. Um, and start to match. Okay, who do we have? What animal does this look like? And then we do what we call a letter writing campaign. And so our team writes a letter to the kid from their dog. So they know who their dog is right before camp starts. And it's usually something silly like, I'm getting ready to go to bed. I've heard all about you. I can't wait to learn with you this week and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's kind of how we lead into camp.
Awesome. So, a question I love to ask my guests is when you were 10, what did you think you were gonna be when you grew up?
If you ask any of my friends and family, they will tell you I've always known I was going to be a child therapist.
Really?
Yep,
How
everybody says
interesting.
that, that I knew. Did I know it was going to include play therapy? No. Did I know it would include animals? Absolutely not. I didn't even know that in grad school. I didn't know it was a thing. So I kinda came in after my license with all that. But yeah, I've just always they said I've been drawn to it and talked about it. I wanna help kids, and this is what it should look like is what
Oh,
everyone will say.
awesome. Okay. So so you always knew and you just kinda went to school and there you were. Like, you followed the path and wound up becoming a child therapist. So, how did the animal element come into play? What made that important for you to add?
Totally by accident. So when I teach, because I do teach workshops on this, I totally own I did not know what I was doing and totally fell into this by accident and did a lot of really not great things that thankfully didn't have bad outcomes, but could have in the beginning. So my husband and I both graduated with our master's degrees, got married, and as soon as we were on our honeymoon, we were like, we need to get a dog. We miss having a dog because we both had animals. So we took some of that extra wedding money and we adopted Abby, our lemon beagle. As soon as we got back, we fell in love with her, saw a listing for her as a puppy, and got really immersed. She's our first baby as newlyweds. And
Mhm.
we trained her and went to all the training classes and group classes and made lots of friends and joked that she has friends. And she even met friends who had family back where our family was from and all these things. She got her canine good citizen. And I say all that because I thought, well, I have a really well trained dog. Like, she's great. And then we moved back to Southwest Florida, and she is a beagle, or was a beagle. She's passed now. And we were living in my grandfather's condo. He had passed away, and we were rehabbing it as family. And it was a 55 plus community, which at the time, obviously, we were not. And finally, the neighbors knocked one day and told us, hey, she tells us when you leave, and she tells us when you get home, and she can't be here when you go to work. This is not working. So we happened to work in the same building, and we were granted permission to bring her to the office with us. And there was an extra room, and she could go in her kennel and kind of do her thing. And, our perfect baby, they were like, oh, she's so good. We never heard whatever this ratting us out when we were at work is what we jokingly called it. And one day I was out with her walking around, and a client got there early and saw her and refused to come in session unless she came in. And at that point, this is a teenager, and I knew nothing. I was like, dogs don't go to therapy. What are you talking about? I've never heard this. And her mom's like, she's legit not going in. Like, you have to bring this dog in. And I just kept trusting my gut, was like, this doesn't feel right. This child had a pretty significant diagnosis and was off her meds also, which was an indicator for me that, like, this just doesn't feel good. But she's refusing. And so kind of went through all of my things in my head. I'm like, okay, if I keep her close to me and I keep her on a leash, like, what could happen? I don't know. Well, she didn't want to be on her leash in the room. So there was all these scenarios. And she was great at first until the client got really agitated. And then she was like a ping pong ball, is how I described it. It's a play therapy room, so it's full of toys and tents, and she was not messing with the toys, but she was not her sweet little innocent self anymore. And
Mhm.
nothing I said with all the training we've ever had worked. I lost complete control. And I jokingly tell people when I tell this story, I basically was ready to turn in my therapy license and be like, no idea what just happened here. I'm done. I can't do this. But as the session went through, she calmed the client, and then so did Abby, and she just fell asleep. And I thought, okay, we made it through this. Well, the client got agitated again, and the same thing happened. And all of a sudden, the client says to me, is your dog copying me? Is she copying me? And I thought, I have no idea the right answer to this question, right? Like, what do I say to this? So I just did some reflection. What do you think? You tell me. Is she copying you? And she said, go get my mom. And I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that. What are we telling your mom? Because my dog just literally launched herself off the couch 5 minutes ago. Not really sure what to do here. And she said, I need you to go get my mom. And I was like, okay. So I called Abby, who followed me perfectly. We went and got mom, came back in, and she said, Mom, I need to tell you what happened. Watch this. And she pretended to get agitated. Well, Abby's like asleep in the tent snoring. I mean, she's just out cold. And she's like, I'm telling you, this dog copies me. And the mom's just looking at me and looking at her daughter. And I don't know. She's like, if I look like that, I'll take my medication. And the mom said to me, I don't know what you did, but I'm taking it. And I was like, I don't know what I did either, but I'm going to research it. And I think I did some wrong things. And I know I did wrong things, like hindsight, right? So then I
Mhm.
just started researching, and I started really pulling all these resources and building that therapeutic relationship, and not just the training relationship with Abby, but the full relationship of us together, us communicating, and not more the compliance that you hear of with
Yeah.
training. And I could walk her without a leash. You're not supposed to with leash laws, but like, she was so great in all those other settings, but not in this. And so
Mhm.
from there, I just really started taking all the knowledge I could get and building that and kind of going from there. And we let her choose her brother, who was intentionally adopted for therapy work. And then we had the two of them for a while, and it's kind of grown from there. So
That's awesome. And there is so much learning in those moments where we try something out and it didn't quite go the way we hoped, but there's something to be learned there. And what an interesting thing for your client to have the external view of what her behavior might be like. Like, "Oh, is that what you see when you see me, what I'm seeing when I'm
Yeah.
watching Abby?" It's a really powerful aha, and it's so good that you didn't just turn and run away from all of that,
I
like,
felt
"Well,
all
that
that,
went
but yes.
poorly. That did not go the way I wanted, and I'm never gonna allow that again." Instead, you dove into "There's something here, and I could learn more and have this be more effective and more, helpful all the way around for
And I will
everybody."
say that was back in 2006, so here we are 20 years later. So,
And doesn't time fly, like, with some of that where you're like, "Can that be 20 years? Like, wow."
it's wild.
Um, it really is with some of these things of looking at how they've changed and how our view of animal-assisted interactions has changed over the years, considerably, and it's interesting to watch that evolution. What have what do you think is really important for people to keep in mind whenever they're considering any sort of animal-assisted work?
You don't need the perfect animal, you need the perfect animal for you. It really depends on what does that work look like, because it's gonna be different for all of us. My dogs aren't trained for therapy work to go sit in a hospital and be social and be pet. They're trained for play therapy. I mean, they're trained to get in there and play with the kids and do the hard mental health work. And so somebody's dog that does hospital visits has great value. It doesn't meet the needs of what I need. So that you've got to figure out what is it that
Mhm.
you want to do and then go that route.
What what do you think helps to know that this will be a dog who will enjoy playing with kids?
The relationship is so important. You got to know your dog. You've just gotta really build that connection and find their joy. Um, I teach for a local university, and one of my colleagues just recently and I were talking in animal assisted work, and she said the biggest lesson she got was when she realized her dog was doing the therapy work to appease her instead of for the
Mhm.
clients. And I was like, "Oh, we all need to remember that, because
Yeah.
is it for us or is it for them?
Mhm.
And is the dog enjoying it or just trying to make us happy and spend that time with us?" And I think that really hit home. I've known it, but just having that reminder when she said that, I was like, "Yes, that."
Yeah, that is something I've talked about with other guests on previous episodes where it can be tricky with this kind of activity because a dog can look really good on the outside in terms of obedience and skills, like they're doing it and they're doing all the things, but their motivation and their joy isn't there in the sense of like, I would really love to do this.
Right,
More there, I'd like to be with you, and this is what we have to do if we're going to be together right now. That's a different vibe. It's
for
a
sure.
different vibe entirely. I ask all of my guests to share some words that have meaning for them, and the words you shared are take time to play, which I kind of love. But please tell me why those words? Why is that important to you?
Well, I think because 'cause I'm a play therapist, that's probably the first
Might
piece
be
that
part
comes
of
there.
it.
But I think we just forget, especially as we get older, and play is our first language. It's also the first language of every species. So how do we communicate with any animal, whether it's dogs, cats, whatever? It's through play to start with. And so if we take that time to play and we're not just focused on training and play training, but genuine, pure, engaged play. And I joke because I just had a conversation with a parent this morning. In Florida, we actually have a law that they cannot take away recess from elementary schoolers. It is a state mandate, 20 minutes a day, and it sometimes gets taken away, but it's a law. And
Mhm.
it's because play is so important, and it actually says unstructured play. They cannot tell them what to do during that time. They cannot make them do anything except play.
Mhm.
And you see a difference when the kids are forced into the structured versus the unstructured. And I think the same is true of us as adults and then our dogs too. So if we really stop and just take the time to do free play, whatever that looks like, it could be different for all of us. And it changes as we grow. But really playing and letting our brain go into that natural first language, there's so many benefits. I mean, I could go on forever. There's just huge benefits for that.
Yeah. And there are a lot of things that we know have a lot of good benefits for us, and we still don't do them. So I'm curious, do you have any trouble ever playing? Do you ever feel like I don't have time to play, or I have too much important stuff to do, so I can't play, or
I do. When I notice that's happening, I literally put it in my calendar. So I make sure that it is scheduled in there. Um, and then even with my staff here, they joke sometimes if they're processing something heavy, I'll send them back into the playroom and tell them to play, and they'll do it back to me sometimes. Tara, did you go to the sand tray? It sounds like you need to go play that one out. So I'm like, oh, you're right. So feeding off of each other, but being intentional and scheduling it too when you notice it's not there.
my daughter-in-law, is oh, I'm gonna get her title wrong. She works with kids with special needs and has the most amazing building with so many rooms and all of the things. Certified board certified behavior analyst, maybe? Yeah, board certified behavior analyst. Um, and so I begged her one time to take me to her office. Like, is there a take your mother-in-law to work day? And so for privacy reasons, of course, it had to be after hours, like not to see the kids or any HIPAA compliance and all of that. But it was really fun to walk around and see all of the play and how much learning could be there. And when she'd point out different things for different purposes and all of that. But just the desire in me to try some of those things, like, it was really interesting to me to notice how attracted I was to, like, "Oh, could I do that?" You know? And I think we do kind of, I don't know, minimize or judge that part of ourselves as we get older. Like, well, that's frivolous or silly, and we can't or shouldn't. And yet, when we look around, there are whole markets based on an adult's desire to play, like entire markets of things that are really not designed for children, but they are designed for play. Um, I do notice with pet professionals, taking time for rest and taking time for play tend to be very common hurdles. So I know you work with kids, but let's just pretend these are kids. What what suggestions or advice or support might you offer to somebody who has difficulty making space for that in their life?
Be intentional and do it alone first, because a lot of the hurdles are who's watching.
Mhm.
Is somebody going to see me and judge me because I did this? So I work a lot with first responders too, not just kids. And one of them just loves to swing on the swing set. And she's like, where can I find a swing that doesn't have people around? I'm like, oh, we might have to build you like a playground in your backyard. But it's finding what works. And for her, she said that's just freeing. But her fear
Mhm.
is people seeing her. So
Yeah.
how can we get that? And so I think that's one of the biggest hurdles for adults, and I would say probably for dog professionals is, okay, I don't want someone to judge me, maybe think I'm not working, not taking it seriously, but you'll actually do so much better work if you take the time to be free and find whatever play looks like for you. You just have to figure out what's comfortable and
Yeah.
not feel looked at and judged.
It is interesting how you just said that about the swing. It just reminded me. It's probably, I don't know, 6 years ago now. I tend to be a one dog at a time person. And so my dog had died, and I was in that awful, awful, awful window between. And my dog and I would regularly walk sort of the same pattern, and we would walk past the playground every morning. And so I'm walking this pattern all alone, feeling very sorry for myself past the playground. And I thought, well, today I could swing because I wouldn't have to, tether him to a tree or something. And so I'm swinging, but it's this community. There are houses all around. It was like a townhouse area right adjacent to my street. And so from all sides, there were houses. And I thought, people are getting up and starting their day and looking out their window and seeing just, a 50-something woman swinging all alone in the playground. And I was, and it was delightful. And I felt observed, even though I saw nobody. Like I have no
The
idea if anyone
unknown, right?
even noticed me. But there was a piece of me that was like, well, what if they're watching? And like, but I loved it. I was like, and so they are. And so I think I did it 3 or 4 days. Um, but I didn't do it every day. And of course I didn't go that long before the next friend arrived because that's very hard for me. Um, I can play more with a dog than by myself. So that's good advice. So just to notice like what's getting in your way and to kind of schedule it and give yourself permission to do it and to try it maybe alone at first. And
And
yeah.
play can be so different. Is it mental stimulation play we need? Is it physical stimulation? Is it individual, group? Does it vary depending on what's happening? I have never well, I did have one dog once, but when we had Abby, we've never only had one again. We've always had more, but watching them, sometimes they'll pair up and the other 2 will go lay down and those 2 just wanna play, or sometimes everyone's playing together, right? So even just watching them and recognizing they even have that.
How many do you have right now?
4 of our own and a foster.
Wow.
Yes.
What are their names, breeds, personalities?
So,
Like, how would you
um
describe these?
they're all rescue. We're very pro rescue. So we are, I think, at our 705th rescue we've had in 14 years. So we foster a lot of dogs and we have
Wow.
our own dogs. So there's a lot. We have a lot of the camp dogs or different dogs for the rescue, but we kind of go up and down with our number. But we've only foster failed, I think, 3 times. So the rest have all gotten adopted and moved on. We currently have 2 Great Danes, full-bred Great Danes that are rescues, Chewbacca and Howley Quinn. My husband had fun naming them. And
Mhm.
then we have Harry Potter, same thing,
Okay.
Paw. We have punny names for them. He looks like a white wolf, but we had his DNA done. He's like Great Pyrenees, Italian Greyhound. He's actually the smallest, but the oldest and the bossiest is what we say. He's in charge. And then we have Jerry.
A Great Pyrenees mix is the smallest?
He's 65 pounds. The Great Danes are 165. Yeah.
Okie dokie. So, okay. So you
And
have a type.
then our Staffordshire Terrier is 80 pounds, and that's Jerry.
Wow.
He is not a therapy dog. The other 3 have all been therapy dogs at some point. Jerry's afraid of people, so we actually call him our 80-pound cat. We have
Mhm.
plenty of people that visit us and don't even know Jerry exists. So, but he's a sweet love. He just had a very big trauma history, so he didn't get his name changed to not traumatize him anymore, and he gets to be an 80-pound cat. And then our fosters
Sure.
could be anything. Right now we think she's potentially like a rat terrier crossed with a pit bull. She's about 30 pounds, so she is the smallest at the moment. But we've had everything from tiny, tiny puppies all the way up to the Great Dane fosters as well. So
Wow. That's a lot of dogs over the years to foster.
it is, but it's
That's
where I feel like I
tremendous.
get my biggest learning. So instead of kind of being a professional dog trainer, I learn my skills and I borrow some rescue dogs and help train them. And we feel like we give back. It keeps our dogs socialized. And
Mhm.
it's great to see them get adopted and hear their stories and everything they go on to do. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, if I had a magic wand and I could loan it to you, and you could give all pet professionals a wish or a blessing, like what would you give us?
that's a tricky question. Follow your passion and pick your niche. Don't just do anything and everything, but kind of stay in your lane to what feels good to you and makes you thrive and happy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good advice. Thank you. Okay. If people wanted to learn more about you and your work, how could they do that?
Probably the best way would be our website, which is deltafamilycounseling.com. And you can email me right there. It's just my first name, Tara at deltafamilycounseling.com. And I welcome any communication anybody wants to share.
Well, thank you, Tara. This has been so fun talking to you today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, fun. You had me thinking things I didn't even know I was going to think about. So
I love that. I love when we go new directions. So it was so fun talking to you. Thanks so much. That's our conversation for today. If something we talked about resonated, I invite you to sit with it. Notice what feels true and what you want to explore further. You don't have to have it all figured out to start moving toward what matters. Whatever showed up for you today, clarity, questions, even resistance, trust that it's pointing you towards something important. For more support, join my weekly notes at ColleenPilar.com. And until next time, remember, you are enough. Always, just as you are.